All right, good evening. I think we'll get started. This evening's webinar is on the school involvement process. We are booked for an hour and a half, but I'm kind of hoping to get through it and let you get to your families and all of the other things that you need to do. So my name is Nancy Angevine Sands, and I've been presenting the series of training workshops for school councils. And this is the second last one of the series. Let me just share my screen and we can get started. Okay, so here we go. All right. So this workshop is being recorded. Keep that in mind. You will be able to find it on the PCEO TDSB YouTube page. All of the previous webinars from this fall are up there, and you can find them if there's any you missed or there's any that you want to watch again. If you have questions, please, it says right in chat, and I should have changed that. Put it in question in the Q&A that you find at the bottom of the screen. And if you use capital letters, that will tell me it's a question rather than a comment. Transcription is available. You'll see the little thing at the top of the page. And for we're going to do one teeny tiny little activity during this, and you'll need a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen. Now, I'm just going to stop the share for a minute because I forgot to do a couple things. Okay. Let's try again. So here we go. As I said, my name is Nancy Angevine Sands. I'm a consultant in family engagement, working with school councils, teachers, pre-service teachers, and communities to build engagement across the city. If you have any questions, you can find me at withequalstep@gmail.com. And when we finish, I'll put it in the chat in case you missed that. So tonight, we're going to look at the SIP, or School Improvement Process, and what it is. I'm going to give you 4 examples of how you can, as a school council, can engage your parents and caregivers in the process, and why it's important to engage. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are hosted on the lands of the Mississaugas of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Wendat. We also recognize the enduring presence of all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples. So we're going to start where we've started each one of these, with my little guy whose eye is on the ball, to remind us that what is important. The purpose of school councils is, through the active participation of parents, to improve pupil achievement and to enhance the accountability of the education system to parents. And that is why school councils exist. As we learned in one of our previous webinars, it's not to buy stuff for the school. It's to make the system accountable and to help pupil achievement. And you can do this primarily, it says, by making recommendations in accordance with this regulation to the principal, the board, and the ministry, but also to build the capabilities of your parents and caregivers to support learning at home. Regulation 613, which governs principals and vice principals' roles within education, that states that the principal of a school shall solicit the views of the school council with respect to the development of implementation plans for new education initiatives that relate to pupil achievement or to the accountability of the education system to parents. It is a requirement of both the Ministry of Education and the Toronto District School Board that parents have a role in the creation of the SIP each and every year. And as I have said before, and will say again, that participation does not mean coming in with the finished SIP saying, here it is, what do you think? You like it? Good, away we go. No, it is in parents providing information or data that will then be used for developing the SIP as they go along. So what is the school improvement process? Its main aim is to support students, and every school participates in the SIP. The SIP is aimed at creating a process for addressing improvement in that school year. And the plan impacts how schools spend their budgets, support staff development, and make positive changes in the 4 areas I'm going to discuss in a minute, to make positive changes in the school and in the classrooms. The SIP is to identify areas of strength, as well as areas that require more learning and improvement. And the 4 areas that the SIP looks at are achievement, mental health and well-being, equity, and Indigenous education and sovereignty. The Indigenous education and sovereignty is a new stream in the last year, but a very important one, and one that each school has to consider when they're writing their SIP, along with the other 3 that have been there for a while. So the SIP will answer a number of questions. Where are we as a school now? Where are we going? What do we need to learn? How do we know what is going to get measured or done? And how will we measure and do it? What actions do we need to take to get where we want to go? And what changes will we make to our thinking and to our behavior? And I just take a minute here to say that when you go on, if you go on the PCO YouTube page, you will be able to find a presentation by PIAC on the school improvement process. It's a really good presentation. It was done a couple of years ago, and some things have changed a little bit, but if you want to learn more after this, look it up and have a look-see at it and see what else, see what I've missed or what clarification is there that maybe you were hesitant about. So the varied voices and experiences of parents and caregivers are vital if a school is going to create meaningful and relevant SIP goals. And I'm going to talk about this a couple of times, but we're going to see that in creating the SIP, data has to be collected and to look at where we are and where we want to go. We need to look at the data. The data that can be provided by the parents and caregivers, as well as that parent knowledge that I talked about in the webinar last week, is vital to create an effective and meaningful SIP going forward to help our kids learn. So there are 4 possible routes to parent-caregiver engagement in the SIP plan that the TDSB is putting forward. And very soon, I hope, there should be coming to all schools a brochure that will be that can be made available to the parents and caregivers, explaining what the SIP is, explaining what a parent caregiver role in the SIP is, and why it's important. As well, there's going to be information sent out to principals about these 4 possible routes so that we're all on the same page in how parent caregiver engagement in this process would look. And they will be getting information on these 4 possible routes, as well as some strategies and some tools to implement whichever route they decide to take. So let's get started in looking at how could we engage parents and caregivers in the SIP process. we're looking at 4 things. One will be listening circles, which I've talked about in previous webinars, open forums, school council meetings, and the school SIP committee. It's important to keep this in mind, please. It's important that participants understand what the SIP is, how it influences the life at your school, and what is involved in identifying the issues and finding the solutions that I spoke about earlier. So as we go through this, I don't think I have always said as one of the first things, explain to the participants what the SIP is. That is a given. That will be the first thing that you as a school council will make sure happens, that just generally the parent body understands what the SIP is and why it's important in the planning and the budget and the work that will be happening at your school over the next 10 months. So let's begin with listening circles. Listening circles will be a scheduled meetup with the principal or his or her designate. The reason behind it would be to gather interested parents together, either in person in the school, or it can be done very easily online as well, to gather the experiences or information from parents and caregivers. You'll notice that I have here the word data written down, and I've done that specifically because your teachers and your principals in the information that they gather will be talking about data. And I want to use that same term when we talk about the experiences and information that we will collect from our parents and caregivers, because I want it to be seen as equal. The data that our schools collect through tests and assignments, looking at the academic records or the equity or what's happening in well-being or Indigenous issues at the school, that data of what they collect that happens at the school is very important. But the data that you and as parents and caregivers can provide about what your vision of the way academics or equity or well-being and safety or Indigenous issues and sovereignty, the way they are addressed at your school, that data is of equal importance. The listening circles would be used to cover the 4 SIP goals that I've mentioned. And as I've said, it can be done online or in person. Now, it is up to the principal if they choose to do the listening circle. If the listening circle is going to, if they're going to have one listening circle and it's going to collect data on all 4 goals, or if they're going to have more listening circles. And as a school council, you can provide input or suggestions or advice to the principal on what you consider to be perhaps the most advantageous route for doing this if they decide to take listening circles. Do you think that one listening circle covering them all would be a good idea? Do you think that there should be one covering all, but have one during the day and one during the evening? You know your community, you know what will work best for them, and you are there as an expert to provide your opinion to the principal. But the listening circle is to be carried out by the principal and or their designate. Certainly the school council can help in any way that the principal would wish, but this is their choice, and they are to run it. The second avenue that you could take, we're calling open forums, and this is informal information or data gathering that would take place during a regularly scheduled school event. So like your open house or a book fair or music night, even parent-teacher conferences, which I know have for the most part happened already. What the suggestion is that a room or a hallway be set aside and experience paper or newspaper, a newsprint be put up on the wall with questions to guide the data gathering for each of the four avenues. So here in the picture here, you'll see equity question. So there might be a question or two there to guide the parents and caregivers who are going to reply about equity. What issues do you think need to be addressed around equity in this school? What do we need to know about your culture, your beliefs, your ways of knowing and being that would help us to better support equity with our school population? Questions like that. And then providing pens or felt pens so that the parents can just jot down a couple of suggestions that they have. If any of you have taken part in democracy, that's a difficult word to say. You can also provide stickers so that if a parent reads an idea on the sheet that they like, they can put the sticker beside that idea so that when these are taken down and analyzed, the principal can see which suggestions were most popular with the parents that were there. As I said, this can be done in a hallway up on the wall. It can be done in a classroom where there's different sheets at different tables. It's suggested that there be someone by each question, and you might want to have 2 or 3 sheets if you have a big turnout of these events. You might want to have 2 or 3 sheets for each question, but that there be somebody there who can answer any questions that the parents might have. That could be a school council member. The school council member would have to be trained and would have to understand what you were looking for, what the question meant, why it was important, but just to provide guidance to the families. I should have said at the beginning, before any of this happens, the brochure that I told you about that was being produced for parents should go out to parents ahead of time so that it's not new, so they can read it and have an understanding of it. And I would make brochures available at any of these 4 avenues that I'm discussing this evening, just in case a parent hasn't read it. So that's listening circles and open forums. The third idea is the school council meeting. Now, where listening circles and open forums were to be run by the principal or his designate or the teachers, the school council meeting is the responsibility of the school council to host. The meeting can be in person or online, and it should be focused on the SIP. If you want to, so it could be a separate meeting of the school council, or it could be a school council meeting where the business at the beginning is, you either have the business at the beginning and you make it a much smaller time frame than you normally do, or you hold off the business till the end of the meeting and the majority of the time is spent on the SIP. We begin by the principal sharing the SIP work that has been, if anything has been done already, by the school staff, to explain where they were looking, what areas they were looking at under the 4 categories, and then to seek input from the parents and caregivers that were attending the meeting. Hopefully, by advertising this meeting ahead of time, by sending out the brochures ahead of time, you would have a significant participation by your parents and caregivers. After the principal has shared his or her information on the SIP and the work that the school has done, the meeting would then seek input from parents and caregivers. This would be chaired by the chairs or their designates. You could, if you were online, you could break into breakout rooms, 1 breakout room, or depending on how many you have, 2 or 3 breakout rooms for each of the 4 areas, with probably some specific questions that you would want to ask, and specific examples of specific questions have been made available to the principals in their packages that they will be receiving. If it's an in-person meeting, you could then divide up and go into small groups of 2, 3, 5 to discuss the questions, and then come back as a whole and share the information that you have. You may see some duplication of ideas from the various groups, or you may be lucky and have a large amount of data that you've collected. The school council may also collect further data as the year goes along. The SIP isn't done within a time frame. The organization of the SIP has changed a little so that it's a living document that grows and changes as the school year progresses. And councils should have a way that they could collect more data from parents and caregivers and to share that data with the school's SIP committee. Okay, so this brings me now to the fourth avenue, and that is the school SIP committee. Each school must form a SIP committee made up of the principal, vice principal, and the teachers. Okay. In this avenue, the school council would appoint members of the parent and caregiver community to join the school's SIP committee on an ongoing basis, sharing and contributing, sharing data and contributing ideas in the creation of the SIP. To begin, the principal would share the information or the data on the school SIP with the school council, with the parents, just to let parents who are interested know this is where we stand right now. The school council's role in this process is to seek members of the parents and caregiver community to sit on the school SIP committee, making it clear when the committee meets, almost invariably during the day, so that any parent or caregiver who was interested in joining would have to be available during the day on the specific times that they meet so they could take part. Their role is to contribute to the creation of the SIP goals in collaboration with the school staff, to seek input from the parents and caregiver community and to share that input or data with the committee, and to report back to the school council on the committee's progress and seeking ongoing input from the school council and from any parents and caregivers who are there. Now, that is a big job, to ask parent members to sit on the school committee, to be there during the day, to participate, to feel comfortable enough that they could participate in a meaningful way, giving their input, their data, agreeing or disagreeing with what they're hearing around the table, and to seek input from parents and caregivers. So the role that the school council carries in this particular pathway would be not only to select or to seek out the members that would take part in it. And let me just say, I'm not talking necessarily about school council members. It could be any parent or caregiver in the school that they think might be interested. But to seek the member for the SIP committee, and also to have a way of continually gathering that data and information from the broader community, going to the margins, collecting from everybody, and making it available to the parent members of the SIP committee. Okay, so what is important in all four of these pathways? It's that we acknowledge and value the constructive parent caregiver knowledge that is available in our communities, that we see the knowledge and ideas and information as valuable data in the construction of the SIP, that the council is there to assist in the process where needed and to receive and share feedback. It's important that the school council remains informed on the creation and the implementation of the SIP. And this falls as a role of the chair and co-chair to have these discussions with your principal. What pathway do you think would work best, principal? What pathway do you think would work best for parent involvement in the SIP process? Here are our ideas. How can we help you to make this successful? And let's work out a way that we can be informed in an ongoing way in how the school committee is moving, where they're moving in the creation of the SIP, and how they are going to implement it. So that, I remember I said a few minutes ago that the SIP is an ongoing living document. That means that the information that you gather can keep going in, but you should be hearing back, not just once, but you should be hearing back on a continual basis. How's the creation of the SIP going? The council should receive a final copy with ongoing reports throughout the year on how the SIP is rolling out. And the SIP should influence and inform council initiatives throughout the year. What has the school committee decided is their goals? Where are they? Where do they want to go under academics, equity, well-being, and safety, and indigenous roles and sovereignty? And picking one or two of those goals that are identified in the SIP and finding ways that you throughout the year can support those goals by making the parents and caregivers aware of them, by building their capabilities to support those goals at home. The things that I've talked about in previous webinars about building the capabilities of your families to support learning, you're going to find those things in the SIP. And so not only are you helping to develop the SIP for the teachers in improving learning throughout the year, but you are going to be working to create a SIP process that will influence your work as you go forward throughout the year. So that's it. I think you may have quite a few questions. I'll just end with this. The last of these workshops will take place on November the 17th, and it will be a repeat of the bylaws presentation. If you haven't seen that, or if you have and you're struggling or need some more information on the writing of your bylaws using the template, this will be an opportunity for you. Okay, so it's already a question. When will principals be receiving the brochures and packages? Really great question, Allison. I'm not 100% sure. I know that they are being produced now, and I would hope, we are in the first week of November, I would hope that they would be receiving it by the end of this month, but I can't say for sure. As Indigenous Ed and Sovereignty is a new goal, can you please share an example of what a goal in this area would look like? Oh, Nicole. That's a really good question. And because it's a new goal for us, I'm not as confident. I would think that how is Indigenous education and sovereignty being supported in the school? How is it being supported perhaps at particular grade levels or in the primary, particular divisions like primary, junior, intermediate, senior. Is there any way that Indigenous education and sovereignty would link with the other goals, being equity, academics, and safety and well-being? For example, how is it the education of Indigenous issues and curriculum being rolled out in the school? Has it been successful? Where do we need improvement? I hope that answered that question. Are principals required to share the SIP with the SAC? And if it is not shared, what recourse does the SAC have? Yes, they are required. It's a requirement of the Ministry of Education. Regulation 613, which I showed you at the beginning of this, is a law. It's not just like a policy or procedure, it's the law. And it says that school council, principals must include parents and caregivers in the development of new ways of learning and policies and implementing policies and procedures. So it is a law. In the Toronto District School Board, it is a requirement as well that they not only share the SIP, but go to the parents and caregivers, the school council, in the development of the SIP. I have to say, I'm not sure in other school boards if they are as direct as that, but I would assume that they are, since the ministry states that principals must do this. I will also admit that it has not been happening that consistently across the board in all the years that I've been doing this, but I know at Toronto District School Board, especially with the tools coming out for principals this year, that it is becoming a really important thing that happens. Are there any other questions? Because surely I didn't finish this in half an hour. Any other questions? Oh, sorry. How can I review this webinar and the others listed on your last slide? If you go to YouTube and you put in PCEO space TDSB, it will come up and you will see not only these webinars, but workshops that have occurred on PIAC's conference at the Parents as Partners Conference, and other training workshops that have been done in years past. I will also in the chat right now put my email. There you go. And the PIAC, yes, thank you, Nicole, the PIAC website, which is www.torontopiac.com. They have lots of helpful information, and they have some helpful webinars there too. Are there SIP templates that can be shared? It would depend on the board. I do not have samples of the templates, though I have tried to get them in the past. If you go to the PIAC, and it's on the PIAC website, if you go to the PIAC, oh no, it's not, it's on the YouTube channel, the PIAC's SIP webinar, towards the end of the webinar, they have some sample questions that appear on the SIP. Now, I will say that that particular webinar is a couple of years old, and so may not be exactly what appears on the updated SIP that you will see, but it'll give you an idea of what they look like. Nicole says that the school council checklist is part of the PX school council toolkit. Out of 4 ways of engaging, some are principals' responsibilities and some are school councils, which is a little confusing. Can they all happen or only one? For example, can the SIP committee and the school council meeting be done together? Okay, that's a really good question, Maria. The SIP, the development of the SIP is the responsibility of the principal, and it has to be completed by the principal and the school's SIP committee that she or he puts together, made up of the teachers in the school. Bringing the parents and caregivers into it is another level. But because it's the principal's responsibility, then yes, it's primarily the principal's responsibility to decide which of the 4 pathways that I've offered tonight work best for her or him going forward in their school. But as I said, I would hope it would be done in consultation with the school council and or with the school council chair or chairs to see which works best. Now, 3 of the things, the listening circles, the open forum, and the school council committee would have to be organized and run by the principal because of the nature of those processes. The school council one would be run in conjunction with the principal, but the responsibility for doing it would fall to the chair and the council members. Can you do 2 of them? Yeah, you could. You could, if, for example, if the principal felt that he wanted to do the open forum one because he or she felt that that was easiest, the school council could decide that they also wanted to set aside a school council meeting, which would specifically look at the 4 goals of the SIP and how the SIP was progressing, how the school SIP committee was progressing in the writing of it, and gather information to give to the principal. But you don't want to get too confusing for your parents and caregivers. You want to find that sweet spot between being able, as I said at the last one, to go to the margins of your community to make sure that you're getting information from the widest possible group of parents and caregivers, but not confusing them with, well, do I go here? Do I go there? Well, I already did that. Do I have to do this? So think it through, what would work best and how could you get information. This year, it may not work really great, right? But I would suggest that you sit back at the end as a council and assess it and look at it and look, okay, this is a way we did it. Did it work? Were we able to collect that parent caregiver data that we wanted to? Did it inform in meaningful and effective ways the goals that the school SIP committee wrote up? And if it didn't, how could we tweak it next year to get better at it? We don't have an active council. Can the chair or co-chair sit on the SIP committee? Yes, you could. My suggestion to you would be, if you don't have an active council, one way to get a more active council in the future is to go out and invite the parents and caregivers in the community to do specific jobs. So sitting on the SIP committee could be a specific job. You go out and you find someone to do that. Every school has a safe and caring schools committee. There may be a parent out there or a couple of parents that you know are quite interested in that. there must be parent representation on that committee. So go out and find a parent and bring them in and put them on that committee, making sure that they understand the roles and responsibility of committee members. The same is true of, it's an option for the school to have parent representatives on the school's budget committee. Maybe there's somebody that's interested or that works in finance. That would be a good person to bring on to that particular one. So if you don't have an active committee, an active council, start by bringing your parents into little places where they could work and do some work and feel that they are contributing to the school, and see the importance of sitting on council, the important role that council plays in pupil achievement and making the system accountable to parents and caregivers. Nicole suggests that thought exchange could be a useful tool for school councils, yes, to collect parent caregiver information. You must have the school council's email given to you by the board to get access to School Messenger and to Thought Exchange, but you should have that email by now anyway. And if you don't, have your principal put a ticket into IT tomorrow to get you that email. Thought Exchange, if any of you have been on the town halls that the Parent and Community Engagement Office have run for the past couple of years, is an online sort of survey thing where you ask questions and parents just quickly write their thoughts for the questions, and they are gathered, and collated. I've asked my principal several times for the council email. Apparently a ticket was placed in October. There is a page, and Margaret is not with us right now. Just give me a minute. Let me think where you would find it. If you go into the TDSB website and you go to parents and community, get involved, and school councils, under school councils, you should find something on, it's either under email, or I'm going to ask Nicole if she knows where it's listed. You'll see the list of things down the left-hand side, and it's either under email or tech, might be under technology. And you'll see there the process that the principal should take. I hope that helps. Oh, Nicole has given the link. If you can see it in the Q&A, I'm also going to put it into chat. Thank you, Nicole. There you go. Are there any other questions? The school SIP, this process is a really good idea for those of you who are chairs to step up as leaders, to say to your principals that you understand it's a requirement of the ministry and the TDSB that school councils be involved in the creation of the SIP, that you understand that there will be tools made available to the principals very soon, and that you and your council are very interested and very excited about the prospect of collecting data from your parents and caregivers that will inform the writing and the implementation of the SIP. This is one of the prime ways for you to meet your mandate of pupil achievement and making the system accountable. I keep saying those words over and over and over again ad nauseum, but there's a reason for it. That's your job. The law says that's your job, and that's where I hope that you will find some pathways this year to go. Okay. You can't see the chat. It's been disabled. All right. Sorry about that. All right, and you always see your own questions. Well, that makes things easy, doesn't it? I wonder if you go on to the chat, if you go, there's open and there's answered. Margaret's not here when we need her. Just give me a second. I'll try to get Margaret here. She is the keeper of all knowledge. Okay, hopefully she's on another webinar that's going on. Okay. Technology is not my strong point, you guys will see. I will, just in case you can't see what was there, I'll put it in again. There's the link to the school council main menu for those of you who haven't been able to get your email yet. And my email. Can you see it now? Hopefully you can see in chat. Okay, great. Are there any other questions? This, I've said it before, and I'll say it again before we end. This is going to be a new experience, not only for you and your council, but for your principals as well. Sometimes as councils, we have to be educators, and we have to help guide our principals along in the world of effective and meaningful parent-caregiver engagement by providing with the information that perhaps they don't have, providing them with links to where they can get the information, by providing them with what you've just learned, and by, of course, always offering to help and to be collaborators with them in any way that would be useful. Just remember that you are leaders within the education system, and what you do is important and necessary and is validated by Ontario education law. Just in case you still can't see what's in, I'm going to put PIAC's web address into chat. What happened there? And another link. You should familiarize yourself with the school council page on the TDSB. There is a lot of helpful information there for all of you. There. If there are no other questions, I will end this evening, as I have the last ones, by thanking you most sincerely for the hard work that you do every day for your parents and caregivers, your students, and your teachers. It's been a particularly rough couple of weeks and may not get much easier in the next little while. What you do is vitally important, and I appreciate all of the hours that you give over, and I know that the parents, caregivers, students, and teachers at your school do as well, even if they don't understand that the work that you have done, even if they don't recognize it as the work that you have done. So thank you for joining me. If you have any questions that come up later, please don't hesitate to write to me. And as I said, November 17th, we're going to end with bylaws. Have a great rest of the evening and rest of the week, and a lovely, lovely weekend. It's supposed to be warm November weather. Thank you for joining me. Kadra, if you could stay for a second, that would be great.